major emergency. And right now, we asked the fire officials directly what caused this, and they said that we can't say for sure right now, but there was work of some kind being done in the area near where the fire broke out minutes before the flames actually started hitting the roof line. And so we need to find out at this point whether that was electrical, whether it was gas, what kind of work was being done here at the complex in the minutes before the fire broke out, because it has potentially contributed to a significant disaster at this apartment complex. You simply do not see a 5-alarm fire declared very often because it's a major emergency. That is what word for word the fire department said in their release here, because when something like this happens, it shuts down an area. We've heard from fire officials repeatedly, stay away from this area because of the danger it poses from smoke inhalation. We didn't know at first how many units were burning, what kind of risk there was of a potential building collapse. It seems like things are slowing down here, but heavy smoke is still pouring out because we know there's still fire burning inside the roof area there. So look at how much firefighting activity is still going on here near downtown Fort Worth. This is still a full-scale disaster response, and it's one of the most intense fires, at least that I've seen during my time here in the last 2 years, because a 5-alarm fire is not a frequent occurrence. This has come as a total shock to a lot of people who live out here in these areas. They're wondering, how on earth could this have happened? Just shutting down this area, the hospital, the medical district of the Rosedale Street area of Fort Worth. People stopped in their tracks and wondering how this could have started. The most severe damage, again, is up there at that top level where you can see the fire attack protocol is still being followed by firefighters. They're spraying directly into that area where heavy dark smoke is coming out because of the potential that flames are still burning inside the roof line. We already saw one corner of the roof collapse. All right, we've got these guys, firefighter teams on the ground who look like they're gonna shift in here. One of the hard parts of this is that there's basically had to be 2 operations because this is a huge, densely populated apartment complex where they had to fight the fire, but they also had to do basically search and rescue operations to make sure that nobody was stuck inside the building. And they said they believed very quickly that they were able to evacuate everyone who needed to be evacuated. They also had to rescue pets, and that was one of the things that we saw. This is the Cooper apartment complex on Rosedale Street in Fort Worth. A 5-alarm fire declared by the Fort Worth Fire Department, 50 units, at least 150 firefighters, ballpark, according to the fire department. This is one of those situations where you have to go all hands on deck because of the potential that this thing could spread completely out of control and do more damage than it had already done. But it's already done, as you can see, a significant amount of impact to this apartment complex. Heavy dark smoke at the roof line there. The roof collapsed in that corner because of the impact that this fire did to it. Completely punched through. Yep, Rosedale right off of I-35 near downtown Fort Worth. They're still hitting this from all angles because this area at the roof line is where the fire was burning most intensely. This is the epicenter, basically, of where the fire actually broke out. And they're hitting it with multiple teams here, 2 different angles. And my phone's starting to overheat here. This is it. This is Rosedale Street in Fort Worth. The Cooper Apartments. We've got team coverage here with NBC and Telemundo because of what a significant event this is. You don't see 5-alarm fires declared very often. When you do, they look like this, something that affects a huge structure like an apartment complex with hundreds of people living here. The potential for a severe emergency. I mean, worst case scenario, severe injuries, loss of life, people trapped inside of an apartment, potentially. Because look at these units, even on the 4th floor, right below where the fire broke out immediately and did its worst damage. They are pouring out smoke still and water coming off of the balconies. This is a 5-alarm fire in the city of Fort Worth, a very rare, very devastating occurrence. And the fire department says they are investigating how this broke out, but one thing they could tell us at this moment was that some kind of work was being done, maintenance on the apartment near that top level area where the fire broke out before the flames actually started. We need to find out at this point whether that work was electrical or whether it was a gas maintenance operation. We need to know what exactly was happening and what was being done to the apartment before this fire broke out. But you can see what the result is, a significantly damaging event that has really shut down this area, a very busy, the medical district near downtown Fort Worth. Hundreds of people on the street just watching this all unfold. Firefighters have basically had to just set up like kind of base camp on the sidewalk because they've been working in shifts. We just saw a team that was sitting here in the shade get deployed basically and get called in. What we understand is that this is a really, like a newer building, that these were nice apartments. We've heard from multiple people who said they've never had any issues living here, that they were shocked when they got basically the fire alarm go off in the first place because of how secure and how nice this building was. And then suddenly for this to break out into a major emergency 5-alarm fire is something you never expect, obviously. You're just living your life on a Monday and chaos like this breaks out. It's just hard. It's really hard to convey how much this area has been shut down because of this major emergency. People on the other side of the street there just stopped in their tracks watching this. You can see how many people are just sitting here on the sidewalks. Police have blocked off traffic on either side. And for us, what we're doing here is talking to people who may have had their pets rescued. We spoke to one woman whose dog was still inside her apartment, very close to the burn area. While she was at work, she called frantically, gave firefighters her apartment info, and we watched when they were reunited on the street. It was a German Shepherd named Stella, and the woman worked at a hospital nearby, or a healthcare clinic, and she was very emotional because, you know, you're at work one second, you get the call that your apartment building is on fire, and if you have your dog inside the unit, I mean, what goes through your mind in that second is obviously the worst case scenario. And so she told us she was so grateful that her dog was able to be rescued. We met Stella. She was calm, cool, and collected, very sweet despite everything she'd just gone through. But yeah, really, really great effort by the Fort Worth Fire Department to not just make sure that all of the residents are out safe, but that, you know, dogs and cats are being rescued from inside too. It's really hard to paint a real picture of how wide-reaching this damage is from the ground. We've got a helicopter that's circling up top that's going to be able to give a better picture here for you guys in the hours ahead of just how much damage was done, just because they can see how extensive that damage is to the roof line. Again, despite all this damage, one of the real bright spots here is that there's only one person hospitalized as a result of this 5-alarm fire, and we don't know what kind of injury that was exactly, but we do know that that person was in green condition when they were transported. Green condition, good, stable. We don't know what kind of injuries they had, whether it was something like smoke inhalation or if they'd actually been burned close to the epicenter of where this fire broke out. And so that's another question that we're going to try and get answered from fire investigators. But right now you can still see they have their hands full. A lot of the thick, dark smoke is coming out from the back side of the roof now compared to the front on the street here. That area of the roof collapsed completely because of this fire. This is just a hole that was torn in the top of the building. And we watched just how strong these flames were to operate in a very short amount of time. A 5-alarm fire was declared. All units for Fort Worth were called out here, and they were able to try and contain this very quickly. But there's still smoke pouring out of the windows down the hallways, and we want to know for sure if this is just smoke that's spreading its way down the hall and is coming out of open windows, or if any other burn damage was done to some of these units here. We're really hoping that that's just smoke that's trying to get out of any other direction. But this area right up near the roof line is where this all broke out. A 5-alarm major emergency is what we're dealing with. This is Fort Worth, Texas, the Cooper apartment complex in Fort Worth, the scene of a 5-alarm fire, a major emergency. But yes, this is on Rosedale. This is the Cooper apartment complex, and you can see how much of the street is, I mean, this whole area has been shut down because of the emergency response. 50 firefighting units here, 150 firefighters. They've basically taken over this entire block and started basically converting it into a base camp for operations. But this apartment complex had to be evacuated very quickly. What happened was it broke out near the roof line, near that 5th floor area where you can see the scorch marks near the roof line and where the roof is actually collapsed up there. That's where this thing actually broke out initially. It's not hot standing nearby here, just because right now it seems like we're dealing with mostly just the dwindling effects of it, and that it's mainly, we're still getting some thick smoke that's pouring down to the street here. But they're trying to just get the remnants of this thing, hopefully at this point, because what it looked like about half an hour ago was thick black smoke, flames up on the roof, and then this roof collapsed here, this corner of the building. In Fort Worth, we are on Rosedale Street right now at the Cooper apartment complex. And so right now, this is a 5-alarm fire emergency still. We're gonna see if the Fort Worth Fire Department has changed the classification of this emergency, because it has been a very significant battle here. You don't see 5-alarm fires declared very often because of how strong the blaze has to be and how significant the impact has to be to the community. We've got residents on the street who are all standing out here wondering basically the same thing, which is, how did this actually break out? What caused this fire? When can I get back into my home? Did my home suffer any damage? There are people who are just working in the area who are watching this all unfold. Look at that. You can see firefighters going. It looks like they're actually trying to open every window that they can. So that's going to be why we're seeing so much smoke pouring out from the building a ways away from the actual burn area, because these firefighters are going door to door in the apartment complex and opening the windows so that they can let the smoke escape, because it's going all the way down the hallway. You can hear nothing but fire alarms, sirens, and water pouring from the balconies here, where they're still trying to eradicate the very last, whatever remains of any flames that were still impacting. But what a full-scale just response that we've seen here in Fort Worth today. Again, this is the Cooper apartment complex on Rosedale Street, the scene of a 5-alarm fire near downtown Fort Worth today, and a significant major emergency declared by the Fort Worth Fire Department because of how much damage was being done, and how much threat there is, especially when a fire breaks out in a complex building like this, where it can spread unit to unit very quickly, and it poses the risk of people getting trapped inside their homes. Starting to get a little tough to breathe here on the ground because of spending so much time probably breathing in a good amount of smoke here on the ground because of how much was pouring out from this fire, especially right when we arrived. You can see the video that I posted earlier when the fire was burning more intensely. So what we're doing, we've been talking to people who were living in some of these units who got the call that said, you know, when they were at work, your apartment complex is on fire. Them rushing over to the scene, wondering how this possibly could have happened, what caused it, because that's the other big issue here. Wondering how on earth a major apartment complex that was built very recently like this is the Cooper Apartments on Rosedale, what actually caused the fire to break out. We heard from investigators that the one thing they're looking into and zeroing in on right now was that some kind of work was being done on the 5th floor up at the roof area. You see where the roof burned through. This is where the biggest fire damage was done. The roof collapsed right there in the corner. Some kind of work was being done on the building up there, and that's what happened minutes before the fire broke out, according to investigators. Now, they don't know the exact definite cause yet. They just told us we're looking into what kind of work was being done before the fire broke out. So the questions that jump out to us, was this some kind of electrical or wiring work that could have led to a spark that caught one of the units or caught the roof line? Was it some kind of gas incident? Whatever kind of work was being done here, we need to get some more answers from fire investigators. They said that they're going to have that information in the next few hours, but right now, what they've been focused on, as you can see, another platoon of firefighters is walking away from the building there. They've been having to basically fight this in teams because of how hot it has been outside. You see a stretcher taken up over there. We've heard directly from the fire department that only one person was injured and that their condition is good. And that is a real relief, because with a 5-alarm fire, that's a major emergency as declared by the fire officials here in Fort Worth. And that can be a very destructive incident with potential for much more severe injuries. And that's not something that we've seen here, luckily, in Fort Worth today. So what we're doing here is talking to people who have actually been watching this all play out. People who live here, people who work nearby and have had basically their day shut down because of this severe But look at this. Firefighters are still, especially after a very destructive fire like this, they have to make sure it's out in time. Operation going on here at the Cooper Apartments on Rosedale Street in Fort Worth. That's where we are right now. The Cooper apartment buildings, residents standing out here in the street. It's over 90 degrees here, so that's part of the difficulty in the firefighting operation for these guys too, was trying to get close to a burning building, as hot as that is, and also it being 93 degrees. That's why they have to work in shifts. They have to basically take a platoon's approach to this to make sure that they're going to be able to safely work in teams and knock down this fire. But look how many people are just out here either displaced for the moment, watching from their workplace out on the street, all of them wondering what could have caused this and when is it going to be safe to go back into the building. A full-scale 5-alarm fire response here in Fort Worth. And the fact that there's people watching from the other side of the street over there, that's part of the difficulty. I'm on this side here on the Rosedale Street side, but there's a ton of people who are watching from the other side, and there's also firefighting units that are attacking this from the other side of that building. So it's hard to get a sense from where I currently stand of how extensive the fire damage itself was, because they're still spraying over there. So we need to see from our helicopter view. We heard from people who live here that they started getting the call or hearing fire alarms go off around 1:30. So this response has been going on for more than 2.5 hours. Nearly 3 hours at this point. This is just shut down, this area close to downtown Fort Worth and what is the medical district. There's a lot of residents here who are facing an uncertain rest of the day, especially those who live close to the 5th floor, 4th floor area of this building. That's where this thing broke out immediately at the beginning, and it spread and has done significant smoke damage to apartments far beyond where the initial fire broke out near the roof line there. That's the 5th floor where the roof collapsed in this building. That's going to show just how widespread the fire damage is, because there's another side of this section of the building there. There's kind of a thinner block of buildings where the street passes underneath, and they're still spraying on the other side, and you can actually see water still going from up there from the other side. So we want to know where the flames are still active, because we're still getting some kind of thick smoke near the roof line where this fire initially broke out. Yeah, you said they just built these? We heard from multiple people who were like, this is a newer apartment complex. We're really surprised that something like this could happen here. A 5-alarm fire that has totally shut down this area. Oh, look at this. These guys, Fort Worth Fire, trying to pump in water, it looks like, and run a hose line operation up into the 5th floor window. Oh, just down the hallway from where the fire actually broke out. Just down the hallway, they're trying to feed a hose in where there's still smoke pouring out of that window there where those guys are feeding this hose in. So maybe they're going to be able to spray some from inside of the actual building itself closer. A lot of smoke pouring out from those 4th floor apartments here. So these are the Cooper Apartments on Rosedale Street in Fort Worth. Up there at the roof line, you can still see a significant amount of smoke pouring out of the roof. You can still see a significant amount of smoke coming out of some of those apartment windows still, and that's a ways away from where the initial burn site was. So you got to wonder just how much smoke is still inside some of the hallways.